So I will though. Atheism. There is no universal atheism. There is a colloquial understanding of the term atheism, and then there's an academic term, atheism. And that's the unfortunate part of our social structure is the majority of us only define words colloquially. We don't have etymological viewpoint of words. We don't know where the words are derived from, how the words break down, how they work in antiquity, how they developed into our current, you know what I'm saying, lexicon. So those are the kind of things that I think that people need to, like, you know what I'm saying, utilize their unlimited access to information for. You know, we do a lot of, like, you know, it's like, you know, social media. I mean, it's like social media is bad because of the society which utilizes it. And that's the thing. That's the narcissistic thing about it, is that we love to blame inanimate objects for our problems. You know what I'm saying? The social media is at fault, not the individuals who utilize social media. Social media is addictive. This and that and that. I mean, it's such a negative. I mean, again, this is a perpetual state of negative agency. Babe, can you bring me a lighter? This is a perpetual state of negative agency, and that's our mission in the Chris Nozick Institute, is to first positively participate in. It's the last end of the joint.
That's all you?
Huh?
That's all you?
That's all it was, a dime.
I thought you were lit about an orange joint.
No, that's tobacco. Can I light it? Wow. I'm feeling and shit.
My stomach hurts. Forgot. Who are you to talk?
What happened?
I said, who are you to talk?
Shit, that's already established. I mean, that's why I asked you for the lighter, because I wanted to hit it. Anyway, like I was saying. So atheism is not a universal philosophy. It is a colloquial philosophy, and it's not an academic philosophy. You know what I'm saying? It's a colloquial philosophy. It's not. There is no academic structure behind atheism. Atheism is defined as a disbelief in God or gods by way of whoever defines it within the period of time that they define it. Atheism historically is a disbelief in the state. Babe, you just sit there and just like hold the joint and watch it.
I was
burn out. No, you weren't. You were sitting there watching it burn.
Oh,
Babysitting
no,
it.
I just hit it.
Wow, that was like really seriously. Okay, whatever. All right. Yeah, I am. I'm not a nice guy.
You're not.
I don't trust your imagination.
At all. Don't be fooled.
All right. Anyway, so yeah, man, I just said I'm a hard person to fucking deal with.
You're a grumpy old man.
You grumpy on that. Jack Lemmon,
For
fucking
real.
goddamn Walter Matthau. Oh my God, I love that movie. Those movies. Oh my God, dude, the Odd Couple. But anyway, where was that about the authentic? What was I saying? Was it authenticity? I wasn't talking about authenticity, was I? What was I talking about, man? Oh, atheism, and academic atheism, and the colloquial term atheism, because atheism in modern 20th century lexicon or vernacular was introduced by this chick. I can't remember her fucking name. In the 60s, and she started a atheist campaign. So are you Googling? Could you Google that for me? What her name was? Atheist, the chick that brought atheism back into
What am I supposed to Google?
atheism, or atheist, or the first lady atheist, or the beginnings of atheism in the 20th century.
Female atheist?
Or it was a female who started it. She was an older chick. She started the atheist movement. A modern
Madeline Murray O'Hare?
yeah, Madeline Murray O'Hare.
Yeah.
She started it. She is the woman who reintroduced atheism into the modern American vernacular or lexicons.
Show her a picture.
Let me show her a picture. This is her.
She was cute.
Yeah, she was. I don't think you can really see it, but Google her. She's the one who brought it back into the American lexicon. But atheist had been a word that had not been used in the modern English language for, like, you know what I'm saying, not just decades, centuries. Like, if atheist was a utilized word during the period of time of, say, the founding fathers, they would have definitely been considered atheists. They were considered deitists. Most of them were considered deitists, not Christians, and by the definition of being deitists, they would have been atheists.
It's deist.
Deist, I'm sorry. They were deist. And they were deist. And so they weren't Christian They didn't believe in a Christian Judeo God. They believed in an architect, or the Elohim and such and so forth. This multitude of gods. These architecture gods, and like I said, Masons. So they were deitists. They were interplanetary gods because they believed like things like there was life on Mars and such and shit like that. Especially Franklin. So, and these deities were responsible, or these deities were responsible. These Elohim were responsible for the creation of the planet, or man on the planet, and so forth and so on, in conjunction with nature. So, so the laws of nature and the gods of nature that Thomas Jefferson is talking about, and he's not talking about a Christian Judeo God. He's talking about their deist God when he wrote, in the Declaration, at the beginning of the Declaration of Independence, the reasoning for the need for separation. So, that's the God that would be an atheist God in relationship to the Christian Judeo God. However, Jefferson and Jefferson, not so much as Franklin, saw the social needs for churches or religions. To a certain extent, Jefferson agreed, but was less a fan of organized religion than Franklin was. So I mean, it's like, so atheism is something that you really kind of have to get into, like, understanding before you kind of like, what I'm saying, determine that there's a universal, because atheists have this idea, well, I don't believe in God. Well, okay, you don't believe in God. What do you believe in? Because I don't necessarily believe or disbelieve in God. I don't acknowledge their existence based upon the evidence, the observable phenomenon of nature that says they can't possibly exist. The supernatural, personal, moral God can't possibly exist. But then I see evidence for this consciousness that can be seen as a deity, but necessarily doesn't have to be seen as a deity. They're not concerned with the worship of man, only in relationship to the understanding of the laws that govern human agency, the logistics that makes man more adaptable to his environment. So therefore, fitting into the circuitry of natural selection, which is the modulator. The catalyst is consciousness. See, what Darwin says is natural selection is the catalyst. It is the determiner. It's not the determiner. It's the determiner is consciousness. The modulator of that determination is the metabolism, or what we call natural selection. I will explain that more so, if I can, because Lamarckian speaks of non-local factors. That non-local factor has to be consciousness. Now, Lamarck doesn't necessarily say it's consciousness, but it has to be consciousness. But it has to be a consciousness that is serving the purpose of observation only. It is only an observing consciousness that the information in which stems from it still retains the level of consciousness in which the observer was derived from, in which they were capable, which they were able of, which they went through the process of providing, and then the action upon that was done by the very information in which it was derived from, life. Life is that information process. And so life abundant to life at the gravity again at its weakest, and these two forces that you want to add into it is life and consciousness, or animation and consciousness, that which animates and which is life, and the consciousness that's derived from it. That animation will eventually result in consciousness, awareness, that as long as something is capable of living and processing information, that eventually it will begin to plan for future events using simulations derived from past experiences in order to simulate future events in which it's at its center. And so their consciousness would have to be at the center. See this? The planet where we're at. See, we're in a perfect place. Literally a perfect place. And you can throw anthropic principle in relationship to this too, where we sit. If we were further in, along as well as to the Milky Way, to the center of the galaxy, or just and I don't like to give the positions. Again, that's something my brother is far more proficient with in relationship to explaining that aspect. I do not want to say that this theory was done in a vacuum. My brother was actually one of the first people that I got to kick this shit off of, and see how relevant it was. And my brother had to be a pretty smart guy to actually comprehend where the fuck I was going, even if he didn't always agree where I was going. We had disagreements about inflation theory. We had disagreements about other fucking, aspects of the Western, theoretical model. But, I really do. I think my brother is the second smartest person on the fucking planet. Guess who I think is the first? But that would be, it wouldn't be hubris. It would be immodest and shit. If anything, I'm earnest and frank. In LA, I'm frank. In Chicago, I'm earnest. On that note.